Okay, so now we're going to move into what is the application process. So just as was mentioned in the previous video, we have to apply, right? So if I'm trying to become a non-government organization, especially if I'm attempting to receive funding from granting bodies, from a city, from potentially foundations, or even just to be able to set up the ability to receive donations from the generalized public, right? I have to become a registered organization, especially again, because if you are a nonprofit, most of the time you are tax exempt, right? And you can write off things. You're kind of in a different category. So with that, we have to make sure that you are following the correct rules to becoming a true entity, right? It would be the same as if you were applying for an LLC for a business. So let's walk through what the application process is going to look like. And again, what is the goal of this? So you will see that I have made this pretty straightforward for you in the essence that I have created a template for you. And you're just going to fill in this information. And then again, when you start to put together the next part, which is part two, and I'll have a video to support that in the next week, that talks about the breakdown of the strategic plan for this. Again, this would be all the things you would be doing if you were attempting to form an NGO. So a lot of the things you're going to see here, you're almost going to pull this information out and use inside of the strategic plan that you're going to put together. That's going to be now more of a written document. Okay, so pretty self-explanatory in the opening part of this, right? What is the name of your organization? Maybe you have a fun acronym. Maybe you come up with a fun acronym and then you back in what the words would be. Again, this is where let creativity fly. This is the fun part about that. Address. You don't really need to worry so much about the address. Just give me a generalized location of a town. If you know very hyper specifically, like there is an abandoned lot you want to clean up, give me where potentially that's going to take place, or just an overall potential pinpoint on a map dedicated to where you would want to focus your efforts on. Again, I understand that some of these things may feel like, but I don't know that. I'm not really that. You're making it up in some capacity, right? And that's where your creativity is going to come into play. Obviously, the date you're going to establish or the proposed date, maybe what you're thinking through right now. And as you get through this process, you're going to say, actually, I might just need funding to get started, right? I might just need funding to actually get to the planning part of this. Or if you're imagining yourself that you are, already kind of off the ground and running, you would put in the date that you're submitting this to be when you're going to be established. This part is, you're not going to be judged or, graded heavily, I should say, in this particular aspect. But here's where we're going to need to get into the nitty gritty. So what I wanted to do here was showcase potentially what an NGO looks like and potentially some just different things you would want to look at as far as researching to give you kind of food for thought as you're thinking through these things. So I'm going to pull over here. And so at one point, I was running a program here at UNT Dallas that was specifically dedicated to potentially helping those deal with accessibility to healthy food and nutrition, because food and nutrition is kind of a baseline level in which we would hope to be successful inside of our own home, inside of our education, and inside of our community. And so I had created a program that was dedicated to being a mobile farmers market because where UNT Dallas is inside of a food desert. And that means that there is lack of healthy, fresh options to shop at to feed and nourish our bodies. So this is the actual website of which my organization, and I had students working on this project. So this was put together by a student. This was something that they actually were able to showcase inside of their own portfolio. But the point is, this is a great place to come to as far as looking for some of these key features that you're going to be observing inside of that application, right? So if you were to come to our homepage, right, you can see a little bit about who we are. We can see a little bit about, things that we were trying to attempt to do. You could click through and kind of look at what our mission is, what our vision is, what the end of the season looked like. You can go to an about us, right? And again, you can click through, see that we've got some of these big key terms that you're going to find on this application. And most importantly, really what I want to direct you to here is, again, our annual report. And so what you should find with any nonprofit, for the most part, because most nonprofits, if they have organizers, if they have staff, they need a budget. And that budget is depending mostly upon donation, grants, support from the city, allocation of funding. And to do that, you always, as with any business, you're going to need to create a business report, right? You're going to have to showcase to maybe the city. You're going to have to showcase back to your granting body. You're going to have to showcase to your advisory board, people who you may ask to help serve to make sure that your mission and vision goes off correctly. And so this was a annual report that my student and my project manager put together. And again, you can see some of these big key features that you're going to find in the application. And all I'm showcasing here is just to direct you to some things to consider and think through as those big bucket items. The biggest one mainly being that, again, it talks about our demographic, it talks about aspects of who we served. Here is our budget, right? And again, you'll see, I am not expecting you to have this version of detail by any stretch, but I'm expecting you to look through these things. And again, if you want to plant trees, right? Okay, then you're going to need to become specific about in the aspect of your application, right? What are things you want to accomplish? So while you can give me big, broad, sweeping statements of your mission and your vision, and again, you'll get sort of what those things look and feel like when you go to other NGO websites, or just you can go back to our website. But again, the point being, what is your organization doing, and how are you measuring that? So if you're requiring funding, one of the biggest the funding asks that is going to be asked for is mostly going to be staff. And everybody wants to get paid. That's right. If I'm doing this work, I want to get paid for it. Okay. But what donors, what granting bodies, what, maybe state allocated funds or things of that nature that are going to help to support you, they want to know, what are you going to accomplish? Now this is where you're going to get specific, right? So again, let's take the example of trees. Again, please don't use that as your example or just get creative beyond what I'm about to use as the example. Find your own way. Okay, I want to restore a native tree in a park. Okay, great. Where do you start with that, right? Is there currently no trees? Do you have to clean up garbage first? Do you need to get appropriate zoning permits? Do you have a specific number of trees? Is there several parks that you want to introduce this to? Do you need tools? Right? So when you're thinking through here, and again, it's okay that you don't know everything. And it is okay that right now you're learning through this process of thinking about how to put something like this together. That's what the goal of this project is. It's trying on this hat, so to speak, right? And I'm going to give you feedback in your application. I'm going to tell you, this is good, this is not good, this objective maybe needs to be a little bit more blown out. And again, you can, as long as we hit a minimum of about 3 objectives, if you want to hit 5, that's great, but 3 is going to be the minimum requirement. So again, what do you hope to accomplish over the next 3 to 5 years? this is where you need to be specific. It's not just, I have to plant trees. Okay, how many trees do you want to plant in year one? How many trees do you want to plant in year two? How many trees do you want to plant in year three? Is it just trees? Or based on what your mission is, is it trees and other native plants? And then when are you going to bring on other native plants? Are you going to increase volunteer outreach? Are you going to, right? What is your goal? Are you trying to influx policy? Do you want to create a park? All of these things you're going to break down very specifically. And again, when you start to write these things out, you may realize, oh, actually, that entire sentence is really two different objectives. Okay. So just again, you're trying this on, you're going to get feedback and you're going to modify. Then you're going to give me again the governance structure. What does that mean? It means that just like you're reading in the chapters, right? We have policymakers. We have a whole city that helps to have different departments for maybe some of these things that could support your organization or are going to ride alongside of, or you're trying to stop something that the city is doing. What would you need in your back pocket to help you make that happen, right? For most, it's going to be an advisory board, right? Who would you want on that advisory board? Okay, well, if you're trying to write policy and you're not a lawyer, maybe you need a policy lawyer, right? If you don't know how to manage volunteers, you're going to need a volunteer manager, right? These are the things that you're really thinking through. And again, this is why we're going over weeks to do this project, because you're going to get feedback. And I'm going to say, think through this a little bit more. Maybe think through this a little bit in greater detail, right? That's the goal of this. You're just trying this out. Who are you as far as what is your, are you going to play a direct role? Are you serving as the president, vice president, CEO? Are you the one-man shop, or are you going to have other people that are going to potentially be supporting you? What about volunteers? Do you need assistance? Do you plan on having volunteers? What would that look like? Do you want to work with school kids? Maybe you want to work with little kids as part of your initiative. Maybe you want to work specifically with veterans, right? How and what does your volunteer look like? Maybe to get you launched, you don't want volunteers until you can get going, right? Maybe in, objective number 3, by the time you get to year 3, you're going to have volunteers that you want to bring in, and that's one of your key objectives. For organizational programming, again, are you going to do education outreach? Are you going to have education models? Are you going to do any sort of giveaway programs? Are you going, right? Thinking through all of these things, you're just taking a step. You're just putting some information down. But this is why over the next week, it's going to be really important. Go do your research into what other NGOs are doing, right? Take a smattering and a sampling to see what does it look like to run an NGO and what is an education-based one versus a policy one versus a cleanup one, right? Who do you want to benefit from this? Is it just community? Is it specifically kids? Is it veterans? Is it, you know, um, the voiceless? Is it people who don't have, is it households that maybe being fearful of deportation? Is it who are you trying to benefit in this situation, right? Who are your beneficiaries? And then again, kind of going back to the idea of the address, is there a specific geographical location? So now coming into this question, this could be where you could be very hyper specific. If you're thinking about trees again, okay, well, I'm looking at my town and if there's other organizations that already exist and well, I don't want Dr. DeVarga to think that I'm mimicking exactly what they're doing. So where are they not currently at that I could be focusing on, right? So if I'm I really wanted to replant trees at White Rock Lake. Okay, well, somebody's already out there doing that. Is anybody doing native flowers? Okay, maybe that could be something where, again, I'm finding a way that I'm being uniquely different, or is there a neighboring lake or park that doesn't have something that I can advocate on behalf of? Is there, again, a region that I want to focus in on specifically? All right, here's where you're going to play the game of budgeting, right? You're going to throw some numbers on a piece of paper, and again, go back to your objectives. What did you say you wanted as a goal? And then just do a brief, again, let's go back to our trees. I want to plant native trees. I want to plant native crepe myrtles. I don't think that's something that most people want to plant, but let's just say that. Go and just quick Google. How much is the average cost of, a new crepe myrtle, right? Use that as your basis. If you want to plant 100 trees this year, times that by 100, right? If you want to put in staffing, right? Think through. Just put together a rough overview. You do not have to go into this version of detail, but these are just giving you ideas as to what you might have to think about as you're budgeting, right? Last but not least, the last couple of things that you really need to think through. Where are you going to get the funding? Well, source number one is easy, the city, right? You're applying to get that funding from the city. We can simply say City of Dallas because that's where we are at this moment, right? But where else? Are you going to apply for grants? Are you going to set up a donation? Are you going to look for private donations? Is there a particular, are you going to pursue Microsoft or wherever you think you want to go to receive this funding? This is really important. And again, it gives you some examples to think through. So just considering those. Again, put down what you think, if you were wearing this hat, that would best serve you. Here's just another brief thing that you could use to help guesstimate your budget, right? Again, mainly I would probably think through, probably for a lot of you, it's going to be really this. What do you need? Is there anything you physically need to get this launched, right? For these other things, if you want to do education, do you need to print? You're taking a guess, but I'm asking you, be reasonable. You're not asking for hundreds of millions of dollars, right? We're looking at a justification. And you know what? Maybe what I will add is a budget limit. Maybe I'll say $50,000 and you have to break it down. In fact, let me do that. I'll add that in there. Partnerships. Do you want to partner with public schools? Do you want to partner with other nonprofits? Do you want to partner with the city? Do you want to partner with, a completely different organization that helps to support what you're doing in a by proxy, right? Maybe you want to intervene healthcare and you're just going to do the education part of it, but maybe you want to bring the mammogram truck up, right? These are all things to think through. Then describe why they would be a good choice in collaboration. And then the last little bits here, impact and goals. What are you hoping to achieve? So go back to your objectives. Here is some kind of examples. What are you hoping to collectively create? Again, are you trying to reduce overall impact of pollution? Are you trying to increase oxygen output? Are you trying to just beautify an area, right? This is where maybe you want to go back to the textbook and you want to look at some of the broader themes that are in urban ecology with inside of the subsets of our different chapters to say, I want to reduce, water pollution. Well, okay, what would I need to measure as far as that impact, right? How are you going to monitor it? And again, as far as the key performance indicators, you don't necessarily, are you going to do surveys? Are you going to do follow-up quality testing? Things of that nature. You might have to go out and think through a little bit about, some of this terminology. Again, you're putting your application together. And please note, just because there's one line here doesn't mean that you should only have one sentence. You may have a paragraph, right? The more you're putting in information here, the easier it's going to make for you to put together your strategic plan. So just thinking through that. And then finally, last but not least, right, you're signing and dating it and you're submitting it, and that is your application. That is part one of this process. I will post this for you. If you have any questions next week, come see me during office hours. Again, you can do it in person or virtually, and we can discuss kind of some of the questions you may have. Remember, you're also going to get feedback from me, in your application that says, this is going to work, this isn't going to work. Maybe think through this a little bit in bigger terms or blow this out a little bit more when you get to your strategic plan. Okay, I hope this is helpful and I hope it gets you through being able to submit the application. Again, this is just the very first kind of thinking through part of this project.